Well, good morning. Thank you all for coming out. I want to start out just by pointing out that yesterday's victory was really the culmination of decades and decades of work. This is a fight that's been waged in firehouses across the city, in the halls of city council, in the mayor's offices, in community forums. This is a battle that people have been waging for decades and decades. Starting back in 1963, New York City's fire department was 4.15% black. In 2007, when this litigation began, the firefighting force of New York City was down to 3% black. There's been no change, and matters have only gotten worse. The firefighters have had no choice but to turn to litigation, and yesterday's decision really is a vindication and an affirmation of what we have been saying and what people have been saying for years, which is that New York City discriminates against black applicants for entry-level firefighting positions, and it has not taken any measures, despite being told repeatedly about this problem, to remedy the situation. Going forward, the history of this case and of this situation is something that we definitely want everyone to keep in mind. Back, as the judge in this case has pointed out, one of the fatal flaws with the city's exam process was the disparate rates at which black candidates were not passing the test as compared to white candidates. In addition to that, we've got the severe underrepresentation of blacks in the firefighting force. In a city that's 25% black, there's no excuse for having a firefighting force that is only 3% black. The city has managed to diversify its other uniformed services. The police department, the corrections department, the sanitation services, all range in their demographics from 16 to 60% black. The city has managed to find a way to make its civil service employee workforce more representative of the population that it serves in every department except for the fire department. And despite repeated pleas, despite statistical information, despite complaints by community members, by employees, by city officials, the city has done nothing about it. So we're excited about yesterday's decision because it's going to hopefully at this point give the city no excuse for failing to remedy the situation.
Thank you all for being here, and I want to thank more than anything the members of the Vulcan Society who have waged this fight for so long and so hard, and I can't remember ever having a client who was so involved, who came to court every day, who were as dedicated to this case as the Vulcans members have been to this case, and you guys have been absolutely great. This is a very important decision, and a very unusual decision. Since the days decades ago in the South, I don't think there have been many decisions where a city has been found to have intentionally discriminated against a minority group, in this case, the black population of this city. And Anjana has told you some of the statistics. They're glaring, but there's more than just statistics here. The city has been aware of the problem. They have been warned about the problem. The courts have told them how to do these tests to run them fairly. The courts have told them that they cannot continue to select firefighters in the way that they've done it, and they have snubbed their nose at the courts. They've done it since 1973 in a case called the Vulcans case. They did it later in the 80s in a case called the Guardians case, and they've done it more recently than that. And every time the courts tell them the proper way to select so that you're not discriminating against a minority group, they say, we don't care. And that's what they've done here. And finally, a judge has courageously but correctly said, what you have done is clear evidence of an intent to maintain a discriminatory system. And what the city has done basically is preserve an all-white preserve in this city, and that's the fire department. There's nothing like it in any other agency. There's nothing like it in any other city in the country. And I think it's extremely important that a judge has finally said, this is not accidental. You knew this was happening. People have told you how to do it correctly, and you have said, we don't care. As he said in his decision, the mayor was made aware of the problem, the police commissioner was made aware of the problem, and they did nothing. They did nothing to correct a testing system that was severely biased against minority applicants. And that's the importance of this decision. I want to say one other thing about the importance of this decision. I think it opens the door to a new kind of remedy that we haven't seen before. You all know that the courts recently found that the recent tests, were unlawful, that they were biased. Now the courts have said it's more than that. It's more than just the recent tests. It's a history of denying people their rights to be employed in the fire department. And what this means, I think, to us and to the Vulcan Society is we are now in a position to say to the courts, it's not enough to make the recent victims whole. You have to deal with the effects of the discrimination over the decades. And that means we have to take affirmative steps, aggressive steps, to change the selection system so we bring that number from 3% up to 25% or so, which is where it should be in terms of black representation in the fire department. So the decision for us is tremendously important, primarily because of the implications for future hiring, but it's also important because it raises a lot of interesting questions about the damages. Because under the intent provisions of the statutes, victims are entitled to compensatory damages, which is different than what they were entitled to under the previous decision. It's more than just back pain now. Now, a firefighter who was determined to be a firefighter and studied and wanted to be in that exam and kept himself in shape so that he could participate in that exam and was turned down because he was black, has a claim for the humiliation, has a claim for the emotional harm, has a claim for having to explain to his kids and his family why he didn't get a position in the fire department that he thought he was fully entitled for. And that is entitled to compensatory damages. But the important thing I know to the Vulcans is getting the membership of this department up to the numbers it should be at. And I think the best to hear from John and Paul. John was said is the current president, John Coombs, of the Vulcan Society, and Paul is the past president, and both of them have engaged in this struggle for a very long time.
Good morning, everyone. As we know, this decision was handed down yesterday, and it just shows that once you're found to be guilty of a charge, you now have a responsibility to address that found guilt. The fire department has had ample time under past President Washington's administration. Some 8+ years ago, Mayor Michael Bloomberg, under his newly elected position as mayor, was given an opportunity to address this issue. Unfortunately, the mayor didn't see it fit to address something as important as diversifying a city agency. Well, millions of dollars later, of our tax-paying dollars, of New York City residents' tax dollars, we are here with a verdict that could be no other than what was decided yesterday. It's unfortunate that so many dollars were wasted on this. Mayor Bloomberg had a second chance to back off and then try to resolve the issue. He did nothing. Now, here we are, a third term with Michael Bloomberg as our mayor. We would hope that Mayor Bloomberg sees the reality here now. The fire department is not a family business. It's a city agency. Because one was born from parents or he has a lineage in the fire department, he or she is not automatically qualified to be a firefighter. For that reason, we're encouraging city residents to look deeper to see whether or not they're interested in this position. There are countless individuals in the black community and other communities who were turned down. As you know, our city is growing in diversity. It is shameful in this day and age for our department to not represent that diversity. That decision made by Judge Garaufis was the right decision. It's in the best interest of a city of such magnitude of diversity, and we are hopeful that we'll continue to grow. The Vulcan Society will stand on the principle as it has for the last 70 years. Injustice anywhere is truly a threat to justice everywhere. For that reason, we will be here. We will be encouraging city residents to raise their voices to the countless millions of dollars that leave our city every year by the admission not only of the fire department, but the United Firefighters Association, which is the union. They've admitted that half of their workforce do not live here. Mayor Bloomberg, it is financial irresponsibility to continue the pattern that's been set. It is, however, part of your legacy to make change become a reality for city residents. Thank you.
I just want to take a quick second to thank our legal dream team that we have associated here that's done such great work over the last 10 years. It was 1999 when I first walked into the offices of the Center for Constitutional Rights, myself and Mike Marshall, and we didn't know how lucky we were to receive such great counsel that we did from the Center for Constitutional Rights way back in '99. That was when the whole ball started rolling. Levy Ratner came on board and has done an excellent job as well, and also Scott. And I'd just like to take this second to publicly thank them for the great work that they did. Many other law firms didn't want to bother with this case, although everybody knew we had a strong case. But these folks took it up and did a great job. I just want to make two quick points. One is we have to understand the enormity, I think, of the crime that's basically been committed against the black community of New York City. The New York City Fire Department has existed for 145 years. Over those 145 years, countless thousands of black men and women did not get the job of a New York City firefighter when they were more than qualified to do so. Thousands upon thousands. For the first 50 years of the fire department's existence, they hired no blacks, period. For the next 50 years or so, there basically was a quota of 1 or 2 or maybe 3% blacks in the New York City Fire Department. And over the last 50 years, we've seen the discrimination that the judge just ruled on. So we're talking thousands of New York City black residents who should have been firefighters but were not firefighters. So it's an enormous wrong that's been done and that needs to be righted. The second point is there's no shortage of solutions here, and now we have to concentrate on those solutions. Every solution that we've approached the city with has been disregarded, basically out of hand. We went to the fire department years ago and said, listen, there's a cadet program that you had established, you discontinued it. It shows some promise. How about let's put some money into that and having that program go on and bring some blacks and people of color onto the job. The city refused. We went to the city and we said, listen, we want a decent recruitment effort to be put forth. We want you to put the resources towards it. We know that if you do, that black New Yorkers, brown New Yorkers, all New Yorkers will come out and take this test. The fire department finally, after much pressure and the threat of this lawsuit, put some money towards recruitment, but not nearly enough, not nearly what they should have done. And right now, the fire department's recruitment budget is 33% of what it was 4 years ago when they did their so-called successful recruitment effort. It's 33% of what it was, and the fire department has no plans in making this a full recruitment effort as they did 4 years ago. We went to the fire department and we said, listen, let's give extra points. Let's give some bonus points for people who live in the city. Let's give them a leg up so that they can become firefighters, so they have a little leg up to become a firefighter. This is done all over the country. Municipalities do this as a matter of course. They give their residents a leg up. Some municipalities mandated that you have to be a resident of the city long before you even apply for the test to become a firefighter. The city's fighting us right now on that very effort. So we've constantly gone before the city, the fire commissioners, the previous commissioners, and this current mayor, and every solution has been rejected out of hand. Now we need to come up with the solutions that are going to fix this problem. As President Coons had mentioned, when the Mayor Bloomberg came into office 8 years ago, the fire department was 3% black. He's constantly pounding his chest as to how great a job he's done. Today, the fire department is still 3% black. We need changes. Some of these changes are going to be, might be tough, but these changes need to be made if we're ever going to address this wrong that's been done.
Given the history that you cited in the case and that the judge cited in his decision, whatever the court orders for the fire department and the city to do in terms of hiring, what's to say that the city is just not going to resist that?
Well, I'm sure you know, I guess probably our lawyers would be better.
No, I think the answer is half that the community should be responding, and the community should be responding loud and clear that this is unacceptable. And I refer to all the community, the white community, the black community should be up in arms about this kind of a situation because it's such an obvious denial of rights. And then if you disobey court orders, you're in contempt. And if you're in contempt, you can be fined, you can be put in jail, you can suffer a lot of serious consequences if a court tells you to do something you don't.
And especially in light of these financially trying times, I would hope that New York City residents see this as an unnecessary responsibility, unnecessary burden on us financially. Why would the mayor continue on? He already lost. So it's time for New York City residents to stand up. And it doesn't matter where your nationality, your race, your gender, your sexual preference. None of that matters. What matters is there's countless people in New York City who's constantly been overlooked for careers, opportunities that, by their mission, again, by the fire department themselves, $400 million leave our city annually. That's crazy.
I just want to say one thing on Paul's comment. From the very first day of this case, we have been meeting with the city and urging them to sit down with us and work out a resolution. Paul met with the mayor when the mayor first came into office and said, let's work this out. We met with them when this lawsuit began or when the charges were first filed, and we said, let's work this out. Let's look for a way to do it. And if the city were a therapy patient, we would say they were suffering from severe denial. Their response to this kind of situation is not to seek a resolution, not to seek an affirmative, effective solution, but to circle the wagons and defend. And so you have the corporation council and the mayor and the commissioner getting up at your press statements and saying, we did nothing wrong. And everybody's looking at the statistics and looking at the tests and looking at the rejections of applications and saying nobody in their right mind could be saying there's nothing wrong. But that's their position. So I think Paul's point is very well taken.
On the remedy phase that could be ordered,
Yeah.
what are some possibilities that could happen? What are some options? Do you have a preference? And also, do you think the sort of very harsh wording in this decision could lead the city to finally come to the table and say, let's settle something?
I would hope so. Our hope is not to continue on this litigation, but to bring it to a close in a meaningful way that deals with the effects of the 4 decades of discrimination. That's our goal in the case, and it has been all along. And when you ask about remedies, I think there are numbers of ways, I think John mentioned this, of resolving this kind of a problem. For example, the most important qualification for firefighters are physical skills. If they were to do their rank ordering and hiring based on how you do on your physical skills, there would be very little or no adverse discrimination either way. Instead, they use some arcane written questions having to do with things like deductive reasoning and reading comprehension, which is not used on the job. The most important skill on the job, by the way, in a cognitive way, is oral comprehension and oral communication, because that's how firefighters communicate at a fire. Does the city test for this? No. Do the other cities in the country test for this? Yes. Is there a lot less racial impact when you test for oral as opposed to written comprehension skills? Yes. So you ask yourselves, why isn't the city dealing with these kinds of problems? And the answer goes back to what I said before.
Do you think there could even be a mandated order, like I'm saying, a quota system? Is that something that could come?
I think there could be goals. I think there could be goals where the city commits to using methods that are fair, that are related to the job, and that do not have an adverse impact, and that bring forward many minority firefighters who have not had the opportunity in the past and now can be brought onto the force. I think they could do it effectively. It's been done all around the country. In every major city in the country, they have dealt with this problem except in New York.
Are there any specific firefighters who were discriminated against in the past and may be involved with this suit that are going to reapply now as per this ruling?
Well, we know there are quite a few men and women that have reached out to the Vulcan Society, and we're sure some will come forward. That's been the case. Some will come forward. We don't know. We don't have names right now, but we're sure that some will come forward, and we'll deal with them as they come forward.
By the way, there are a number of firefighters who were discriminated against in those earlier tests who have taken the most recent firefighter exam and are on the eligibility list. But because these tests continue to have an adverse impact on minority applicants, they're further down the list. So the city now is trumpeting the fact that a lot of minorities passed the most recent test, but they're still using the same illegal ranking system. And so the minority applicants who passed the test are further down on the list, and they probably will never be hired. So it's a sham that they've handled this the way they've handled it, and they should be called on it, and they should correct it. More than anything, they should be looking for corrective action and not the usual hiding.
And we want to make one thing clear. We're not looking for a temporary fix, as was mentioned earlier. We're looking for a long-term solution to change the problem. We don't want an existing problems 25 years from now. We want to eliminate this process, this archaic process of testing. We're looking for a new test, and we're also keeping in mind, Mayor Bloomberg said November 27, in 2007, that 33% of the current exam, that was their best recruitment effort, was of a diverse background. Well, how many people have been hired off of that list that they boast so much about? Of the 300 candidates, 106 of them were of diverse backgrounds. That's it in the last 2 years. It's not doing a very good job. So if nothing else, look at his record. Look at what he says. Forget about the statistics. Forget about the numbers. Forget about the countless speeches. Look at the actual hiring of firefighters in the New York City Fire Department. And I do remember my statement was, not so fast. Until those individuals are hired in the position as firefighters in New York City Fire Department, then and only then can we determine success or failure. It doesn't look successful to me. What does it look like to you?
On Monday, Mayor Bloomberg was asked a question about why the department isn't diverse enough, and one of his answers was that the only people, or the majority of people who apply for the fire department tend to be the sons and daughters of firefighters. How do you take that response in light of this decision?
Well, as the son of a firefighter and the younger brother of a firefighter, I know what he's talking about, and he makes a point. He makes a valid point that to have intimate knowledge of this job is a huge advantage. That's something that doesn't exist in the black communities because of the discrimination that the judge just ruled on. This discrimination that's going on for over 100 years. The knowledge of this job doesn't exist in our communities. So that's a detriment. But that's not the end all and be all. That's not a hurdle that can't be overcome. That's overcome easily with some recruitment. That's overcome in many other ways that are clearly known, that have clearly been laid out to the man. He just refuses to do. It is a big advantage, but it's nothing that can't be overcome.
I think the mayor also discounts a very, very important fact, and that is when you're in a community such as the black community, and the people you know have been turned down for the job over and over again, and the organization that you look at is virtually all white, there's a very clear message. And the message to you is, this is a whites-only club. You are not going to be hired into this organization, and look elsewhere for a job.
Also, I would think, in light of all of this, wouldn't it be a good time to talk to the Vulcan Society? After all, we are black. We have black members. We've been recruiting black people. Who else would you consult? You consult someone who has an experience in that area, right? So the ignoring of the Vulcan Society has come to an end in itself. If the mayor wants to diversify the department, he should work with organizations like ours.